welcome back to our channel on this beautiful day. We are thrilled to bring you the latest, most intense updates from Genoa City. As always, we dive deep into the intricate lives of your favorite characters, exploring the hidden motives and explosive secrets that keep us all on the edge of our seats. Grab a comfortable seat and let us unravel the tangled webs of betrayal, love, and survival that define our beloved drama. The Newman family is currently plunging into a terrifying abyss of addiction and despair, centered entirely around the rapid deterioration of Nick Newman. The squalor of his apartment and the undeniable presence of fentanyl have painted a grim picture that his sister, Victoria Newman, can no longer ignore. Operating with her signature cold executive resolve, yet masking a profound, suffocating sisterly panic, Victoria has come to the devastating realization that Nick has absolutely no control over his lethal cravings. Recognizing that his hollow promises of recovery are nothing more than the desperate lies of an addict, Victoria makes the agonizing decision to sound the alarm. She knows that handling this crisis requires the full, unmitigated weight of the Newman family's power, prompting her to immediately alert her parents to the catastrophic reality of Nick's condition. The news of Nick's severe relapse strikes Nikki Newman with the force of a physical blow, triggering a visceral, paralyzing horror that only a mother who has battled her own relentless demons can truly comprehend. Nikki's mind instantly races back to her own darkest days, clutching a vodka bottle in the shadows, and the generational curse of addiction that seems to haunt their bloodline. Her maternal heart shatters at the thought of her beloved son suffering the agonizing, bone-deep pangs of opioid withdrawal and the lethal, suffocating grip of fentanyl. The sheer terror of potentially burying her child overrides every other emotion, transforming her lingering anger over recent family betrayals into a desperate, singular focus on Nick's immediate survival. In the face of this existential threat to their son, Victor Newman and Nikki make the profound decision to completely suspend their bitter, ongoing marital Cold War. The patriarch, who traditionally solves his problems with heavily armed security teams and ruthless corporate takeovers, now faces an invisible, insidious enemy coursing through his son's veins. The lingering resentment over Jack Abbott and the various manipulations that have plagued their relationship are instantly buried beneath the urgent, terrifying necessity of saving Nick's life. Together, Victor and Nikki forge an impenetrable, united front, pooling their formidable resources and emotional strength to orchestrate an intervention that will force Nick back from the brink of death, regardless of the extreme measures required. Across town, the Abbott family is navigating its own self-inflicted emotional labyrinth, driven by toxic manipulations and desperate hopes for redemption. Jack Abbott, isolated in the sprawling Abbott mansion, experiences a profound emotional tremor when he receives an unexpected, softening voicemail from his estranged wife, Diane Jenkins. The message resonates through the quiet halls, offering a fragile, beautiful lifeline to their shattered marriage. Jack listens to her voice, feeling an overwhelming surge of hope that is immediately poisoned by the suffocating guilt of his own actions. He knows that his secret, calculated psychological warfare using the deeply unstable Patty Williams to trigger Diane's jealousy is a ticking time bomb that could obliterate this newfound glimmer of marital reconciliation. This solitary contemplation is abruptly shattered by the arrival of his son, Kyle Abbott, who carries the devastating burden of knowing his father's unethical machinations. Kyle listens to the news of Diane's hopeful voicemail, but instead of offering celebration, he delivers a fierce, uncompromising ultimatum. Driven by a desperate need to protect his mother from further psychological abuse, Kyle demands absolute, undeniable assurance that Jack will immediately abort the grotesque alliance with Patty Williams. Kyle acutely understands that if Diane were to ever discover the depths of Jack's manipulative cruelty, the fragile progress they have made would be irrevocably destroyed, taking the entire Abbott family down with it. Forced to confront the monstrous nature of his own strategic cruelty, Jack makes the incredibly dangerous, fateful decision to completely sever all ties with Patty Williams. He acutely understands that Patty is a volatile, deeply disturbed woman whose obsession with him is rooted in decades of unhealed trauma and the phantom grief of a past miscarriage. Yet, Jack prioritizes his wife's fragile trust and his son's ultimatum, unknowingly setting a catastrophic chain of events into motion. By rejecting a woman who operates entirely on manic delusion and obsessive attachment, Jack is playing a terrifying game of emotional roulette, completely underestimating the explosive wrath of a scorned Patty. The exact moment Patty Williams receives Jack's definitive rejection, a chilling, terrifying psychological transformation occurs within her fractured mind. The manic, hopeful energy she had been harboring for a romantic reunion with Jack instantly curdles into a toxic, hyper-focused rage. However, this devastating rejection does not diminish her chaotic drive. Rather, it acts as a powerful, dark catalyst, Patty's obsessive, dangerous fixations are immediately redirected entirely onto the vulnerable, amnesiac Matt Clark. She no longer views Matt merely as a pawn in Jack's game, but as her own ultimate project, a blank slate upon which she can project her twisted need for control, salvation, and devastating vengeance against those who have wronged her. Simultaneously, Phyllis Summers is spiraling into a state of absolute, primal terror, driven to the absolute edge of human desperation. Facing the horrifying, imminent reality of federal prison due to Victor Newman's meticulously fabricated artificial intelligence evidence, Phyllis has crossed a dark, unforgivable moral threshold. In a frantic, violent bid to maintain her only piece of leverage against the Newman empire, she has resorted to extreme physical violence. Abandoning all pretense of civilization, Phyllis has brutally knocked out and securely bound Matt Clark in her luxurious suite at the Genoa City Athletic Club, reducing her supposed ally to a helpless hostage in her frantic war for survival. However, Phyllis's fragile illusion of control is about to be violently and irrevocably shattered by Patty's cunning, predatory infiltration. Operating with a terrifyingly calm and calculated precision, Patty approaches Marcy Goldman, a vulnerable maid at the Genoa City Athletic Club. Through a masterful combination of heavy financial bribery and subtle psychological manipulation, Patty secures the ultimate prize, a master key card to Phyllis's secure suite. This illicit transaction is a masterclass in opportunistic villainy, granting the deeply unstable Patty unchecked, invisible access to Phyllis's most guarded and dangerous secret. Patty slips silently into the dimly lit hotel suite, her wide eyes falling upon the shocking, grotesque sight of Matt Clark. The man who once terrorized Genoa City with his own brand of lethal abuse is now reduced to a helpless, bound, and gagged captive, entirely at the mercy of his captors. Driven by a twisted, delusional sense of maternal salvation, Patty carefully unties his heavy restraints and gently removes the gag from his mouth. Matt, stripped of his monstrous memories and completely disoriented by the violence he has just endured, looks up at Patty with profound, overwhelming gratitude. This single act of rescue instantly cements a toxic, unbreakable trauma bond between them, fundamentally shifting the power dynamics of the city and completely obliterating Phyllis's only leverage. In stark, beautiful contrast to the suffocating darkness consuming the Newman and Abbott families, a scene of profound emotional triumph unfolds in a sterile New York hospital room. The agonizing, terrifying medical crisis that has gripped the Winters family finally reaches a joyful, miraculous climax. Lily Winters, Holden Novak, and the brilliant Dr. Stephanie Simmons received the life-altering, definitive confirmation that Malcolm Winters' highly risky bone marrow transplant was a resounding, unequivocal success. The crushing weight of impending grief is instantly lifted, replaced by a soaring, euphoric relief that washes over the exhausted family members. The sterile hospital environment is rapidly transformed into a vibrant sanctuary of joy and celebration. A bottle of champagne is popped, the effervescent bubbles mirroring the soaring spirits of Lily, Holden, and Stephanie. They share tearful, radiant smiles, raising their glasses to the miracle of modern medicine and the profound, selfless sacrifice made by Kane Ashby. Amidst the clinking of glasses, they begin to weave beautiful, hopeful dreams for the future. Imagining a world where Malcolm is fully healed and Holden can finally build the paternal relationship he has yearned for his entire life, solidifying a newly forged, unbreakable family bond. Watching these intertwined, highly volatile narratives unfold evokes a deeply profound sense of emotional resonance and introspection. There is an undeniable, heartbreaking tragedy in witnessing the cyclical nature of addiction and trauma, particularly through the poignant lens of Nikki and Victor fighting desperately, setting aside decades of ego for their son's mere survival. It forces a deeply subjective contemplation on the terrifying lengths to which human beings will go when driven by absolute fear, protective love, or unhinged obsession. The raw, bleeding vulnerability displayed by these characters, whether it is Lily's tearful, triumphant relief for her father's life or Jack's desperate, clumsy grasp at marital redemption, strips away the glossy, untouchable soap opera veneer to reveal genuine, relatable human agony. It is a poignant, haunting reminder that beneath the corporate ruthlessness, the fabricated evidence, and the manipulative schemes, the core of these stories is always the fragile, desperate human heart seeking connection, validation, and ultimate salvation in a world that constantly threatens to tear them apart. As the champagne flows freely in New York, the shadows deepen ominously across Genoa City. Matt Clark is now unleashed from his physical bonds, his blank slate of a mind entirely under the toxic, manipulative control of the deeply disturbed Patty Williams. When Phyllis Summers inevitably returns to her hotel suite, she will walk into an empty room and realize with crushing certainty that her ultimate bargaining chip has vanished. leaving her entirely defenseless against Victor Newman's impending wrath. With fragile alliances violently shifting and the most dangerous minds in the city merging into a unified threat, the stage is perfectly set for an unprecedented explosion of vengeance. Who will survive the catastrophic fallout when the explosive truth finally comes to light?